That's all I get to speak? That's horrible. Yeah, I'm always on. That's my problem. Hi, everyone, again. Let's try this again. Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Scott. I run a site called textfiles.com, made a documentary called Bulletin Board Systems, the documentary. I run a variety of sites which are basically involved in the collection of online history. As a result, I'm somebody who has a very strong relationship with information, the collecting of information, and therefore the collecting of truth, of fact, of history, and in some small amount, collaboration and working together towards a goal. So, the name of this speech is called The Great Failure of Wikipedia. Part of that is branding, because that sounds really exciting. But part of it is also really true. I first became aware of Wikipedia about a year and a half ago, maybe about a year and a half, 2 years now, where I had heard what a lot of people hear when they hear about Wikipedia. They hear about the idea that it is this online encyclopedia that anybody can edit, and that there's this software that allows people to collaborate, provide information, truth that they find, or history or facts that they find, and together, working together, this large group of people are able to create a superior learning and reference tool that, because of its free license, will allow people to share it universally, without limit, up to the infinite future, to the point where, as Mr. Wales puts it, it is the availability of the sum of human knowledge to everyone on Earth for free. Now, these are extremely lofty goals, and so when one goes to it, one kind of goes on to Wikipedia, finds, first of all, this ugly color scheme, and then they find that there's this interesting amount of information, in fact, a massive information. The further they click, the more information they find, until they're amazed at just the pure mass of knowledge that seems to be possessed here about the most minor of subjects and the most major of subjects. All of it seemingly pretty well edited, pretty well put together. Where it isn't, it looks like there could be some rules that come by. And so for many people, when they go to Wikipedia, they might come with a pet subject and say, wow, this is an amazing success. I wish to know who the King of Spain is, and then I can find that out here. Here is the King of Spain's name. Fine. Oh, and it turns out Spain exports this crap a lot. Let's find out more about that crap. And 4 hours later, they come away and say, wow, Wikipedia is a great experience. I do not dispute that. I do not dispute that Wikipedia, for a person who is playing the part of a tourist, a web browser, is a beautiful success. It provides you with a large amount of information, most of it seeming to be relatively accurate, and for the purposes of the fact that you didn't know how much of something there was, or what the name of something was, or what something stood for, you get that reference pretty quickly. The problem is that once you start to, and I, again, completely buy into the Britannica article that said that if this site was called Jimbo's Big Bag of Trivia, it would have been a fine success and nobody would have had any problem with it. But the problem is that Jimbo Wales, when he put together this mission statement of Wikipedia and the Wikimedia Foundation, he, again, painted it as the sum of all human knowledge presented universally for free. In fact, Mr. Wales tends to be, for me, most of the source of a lot of criticism of Wikipedia, simply because of two reasons. Number one, along the process of putting together Wikipedia, he has put together an excellent vision, but in doing so, while he's given over some responsibility to the Wikimedia Foundation and other parts, he has maintained control of Wikipedia. So his statements are still considered to be Wikipedia's statements. This is actually at odds with a lot of the mission statements. So for instance, when he goes on to CNN and says, we make the internet not suck, he is speaking for Wikipedia. So this puts them in an interesting position. When I started out with Wikipedia, I started out actually editing the Xanadu film entry because it was a minor interesting thing and put in some facts and so on. I dealt with Wikipedia as a lot of people who take a more than slight interest in it do, which is that you go into Wikipedia and begin to edit it and begin to make minor changes. Now, this brings up an interesting idea, which I've tried to push, which is that unknowingly, and these kind of things happen, unknowingly Wikipedia happened upon a form of human addiction. That is to say, it turns out that if you give people a stage, and you give them a stage where they have total control, even if it's for a short amount, they will not rest until they can do it again. In other words, like if you say to somebody, well, you know, if you go and you edit this entry on Jimmy Carter, for however long it is in there, you are the authority on Jimmy Carter, and everyone will know it. This is a completely addictive process. It's what keeps a lot of people going to Wikipedia as an editing faction, because when they use it, they end up saying, wow, I've done it. I've changed the world. And to some extent, they're correct. Because of Wikipedia's freedom, and again, this calls into a criticism. When I talk about Wikipedia in a non-positive fashion, I receive a number of criticisms, which are very normal. Now, there is an entire faction of people who says, who gives a shit, it's Wikipedia. And that's fine. And then there's a group of people who say, well, you know, Wikipedia is really important and you just don't know it yet. Now, I always say you cannot aggrandize and self-depreciate at the same time. You can't say, I'm really good, but actually I'm kind of an asshole. If you do that, what ends up happening is that you get to choose what, you know, you get to put on the asshole or aggrandizement cap based on the criticism that you received that day. So, in doing so, I'm going to assume that Wikipedia is holding to the credo that it put together. That is to say that it is aiming to be the sum of human knowledge, that it continues to compare itself against reference materials. So the first criticism is, well, if it's on Wikipedia, you shouldn't believe in it. Now, this is what I call the illegitimate child theory. You know, people say, well, you know, you shouldn't have unprotected sex. You should not have, you know, sex in a way that you do not regret the outcome. That's fantastic. That would explain all the illegitimate children that occur every year. You know, you can say how people should be, and then you can see how people are. With Wikipedia, because it provides this easy bit of information for people, they can go and get the basic knowledge of something. They can turn away from that and say, that's it. That's all I need to know. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And because of Wikipedia's high page rank, and because of the fact that it can generate a lot of text, it has now become a target for spammers. And initially, Wikipedia has been able to handle this pretty well. One of the side effects of Wikipedia's massive, and this is a benefit of Wikipedia's massive interest, is that it gets a lot of fucknuts. Now, because of that, it's able to fight against the spammers. Now, to avoid that for the moment, what a lot of spamming places now do is they pull Wikipedia text, which is licensed under the GFDL, and they proceed to put it on their own sites and call it webanswers.whatever, and they fill it up with text ads. Now, this is interesting because what ends up happening is, for instance, let's say Carmine DeSapio. We're unfortunately going to have to go through a lot of trivia here. Carmine DeSapio was the last head of Tammany Hall, which was the political grip machine that controlled New York City for 100 years. He was the only non-Irish head. He was it until, I think, mid-1950s, and then he basically got into a lot of trouble, and that was the end of Tammany Hall. Now, almost all the information on Carmine DeSapio is from Wikipedia. If you go and type this man's name in, you'll get 100 matches. All of them are variations of the Wikipedia article. The Wikipedia article was typed in by a retiree from Iowa off of the New York Times obituary from Carmine DeSapio's death, which happens to be locked down under registration so it doesn't get out as much. He transcribed it wrong. In doing so, he got the name of his daughter wrong, he got his age wrong, and he got a number of other important facts wrong, all of which are duplicated now throughout the web. Now, who gives a shit? It's Carmine DeSapio. He's the last guy of Tammany Hall. I get it. We're done. And that's the problem, is you have to say, well, which one are you going to do? Self-aggrandize? You're going to criticize. And I'm going to go with criticizing because, again, when you say sum of human knowledge. Now, let's go back into Wikipedia itself. It's pretty easy. One of the things that Wikipedia has going for it, which I consider one of its great successes, is the fact that it has this general philosophy of opening up to the world and saying to the world, hey, you know, come on in and edit. Now, keep in mind that in 2006, that's a bit of a lie. And again, that's an interesting thing to point out. What Wikipedia, and this is the function of this speech, is not to criticize Wikipedia, but to point out how Wikipedia represents the first wave of a coming information war, and something where the internet, as it becomes more important as a source of information, is going to be headed off by certain forces, by certain techniques, some of which are successful and some of which are not. And that because Wikipedia has let itself be open to this, we are seeing these techniques in use today, where in 10 years they will actually affect lives directly. In 20 years they will be vital to lives. Wikipedia, because of its high page rank, becomes the source material, and it has a large amount of people who want to do things for it, a large amount of people who want to control it, and a large amount of people who want to wreck it. Now, wrecking it is variant. One of the ways people point to the success of Wikipedia, and this is what drives me nuts in these articles that compare it in Nature and other writing, is that people say, well, I went in and I made a stupid error. You know, I went in and I said that, George Bush has a purple nose, and it was changed within 30 seconds. Wikipedia is a success. Now keep in mind, the George W. Bush article spends less than 20% of its time unvandalized. On a given day, over 80% of the day of the George Bush article is spent vandalized. And the answer is, how is that handled? How are they able to do that? And the answer is that because of this constant onslaught of vandalism, which we find generally comes from high school students, Singapore, and college students in that order, is because there are a wide variety of bots, scripts, assistant programs that people have written to monitor Wikipedia and to alert them. So when a person comes in and just makes an edit and they don't have a user account, that automatically sets flags on the log. A thing notices that and will automatically undo it. Okay, so you're not really talking with Wikipedians there. You're really kind of just fighting a bot script, something that is the equivalent of you typed the wrong password in. You came in and you did something really strange. Because you're somebody who wasn't there before, and you went immediately to this article and you made this amount of change, it is assumed you are a vandal, you get a red flag, somebody notices it, and they undo you. So you really can't judge the success or failure of Wikipedia's editing by that. You can judge the success that somebody had to write a client to interact with this information space and be able to undo it that quickly. In Wikipedia, there's basically a form of information vandal. They're called vandals who come in and undo something. That's an interesting problem too, because the term vandalism is extremely wide used in Wikipedia, as are most terms. There's an entire Wikipedian language. Set that aside for the moment. In surgery stations, there is a problem where there are antibiotics used to work with patients. Because of that, over time, a sterile room that has constant antibiotics will develop superviruses, strains that are much more powerful than the antibiotics because they're in this constant environment of onslaught, until when you get hit with one of those superviruses, should this happen, you are at a great disadvantage because antibiotics don't work. This thing has been through a lot more problems than you can imagine. Wikipedia is unintentionally causing these to happen in the form of vandals. See, it's one thing when you get in on the door and you're just somebody with a can of spray paint, you run into the front of the city hall and you spray, "Fuck you," and somebody sees that. They arrest you and it goes away. Hooray, society works, civility is wonderful. In Wikipedia, because of the fact that it is a system of politics, a system of gaming, a system of people being aware of rules, being able to interpret those rules any way they want to and then interact with others and then use their internal language. The term they use inside is called wiki lawyering. And the reason it's called that is because you end up taking these very, very thin credos that Wikipedia has put forward in the absence of anything else, and then being able to interpret them to your own whims. Because of that, there are people, and I will say that quite, this stuff is not entirely known, but okay, there are groups of people now working to destroy Wikipedia. They're doing so by slowly building up karma and knowledge and ability in the Wikipedia system. Wikipedia has about 900 administrators. A good portion of them, more than they would like to admit, are people who are working from within to understand it, take it over, destroy it. The Wikipedia system enables this. Now, why does it enable it? Jimbo Wales is an objectivist, Randian objectivist.